We're all here?
What'd you do, Don?
I didn't do it. Our screens went blank. Oh, there they are. Oh, yeah. It's only 6 o'clock, isn't it?
7.
Yep. Okay, let's call this meeting to order. City of North Kansas City, Missouri, regular council meeting and motion to close part of the meeting amended, November 20th, 2018. Could we have a moment of silence? Brian? Comments from the public? Okay, hearing none. Number 5.
Proclamation honoring Officer Rick Landon.
Rick, do you want to come forward, please? At this time, I'd like to read a proclamation recognizing and honoring Officer Rick Landon. Whereas Officer Rick Landon has served the city of North Kansas City, Missouri, and its citizens with distinction, dedication, and professionalism as a police officer with the North Kansas City Police Department since May of 1986, always promoting the highest standards of professionalism and competence, and whereas protecting the citizens, businesses, and visitors to North Kansas City has always been a priority for Officer Rick Landon while he has patrolled the city, while at the same time building relationships with members of the community, and whereas on January 11, 2018, while attempting to arrest a subject for a criminal act, Officer Rick Landon was shot with a firearm and suffered a serious injury, but continued to perform his duties and encouraged other officers to pursue the suspect, placing the need to apprehend the suspect over his own well-being, and whereas the Kansas City Metropolitan Police Chiefs and Sheriffs Association has recognized Officer Rick Landon's dedication to duty and sacrifice for the events that occurred on that fateful day, awarding him with a Gold Award for Valor at ceremonies that were held on November 16, 2018, and whereas the city commends Officer Rick Landon for his long service and dedication to protecting and serving the community, now therefore be it proclaimed that the city expresses its deepest gratitude to Officer Rick Landon for his dedicated and exemplary service to the citizens of North Kansas City, Missouri, and be it further proclaimed with great enthusiasm and sincere support that this proclamation be part of the official records of the city, and a copy thereof, signed by the mayor, be presented to Officer Rick Landon as an expression of appreciation and gratitude and as a means of honoring him. Done in my office as 20th day of November in the year of our Lord, 2018. Don Stilo, Mayor.
May I ask Sergeant Dan Justice to come forward, please? And I'd like to read this proclamation for Sergeant Justice. Whereas Sergeant Dan Justice has served the city of North Kansas City, Missouri, and its citizens with distinction, dedication, and professionalism as a police officer and a police sergeant with the North Kansas City Police Department since October of 1991, always promoting the highest standards of professionalism and competence. And whereas protecting the citizens, businesses, and visitors to North Kansas City has always been a priority for Sergeant Dan Justice while he has patrolled the city, and he's continually provided guidance and leadership to the officers who have served under his command. And whereas on January 11, 2018, while attempting to arrest a subject for a criminal act along with Officer Rick Landon, Sergeant Dan Justice witnessed the suspect assault Officer Landon with a firearm, whereby Officer Landon suffered a severe injury, but Sergeant Dan Justice continued to perform his duties by initially caring for Officer Landon and then pursuing the suspect across challenging terrain until the suspect was apprehended. And whereas the Kansas City Metropolitan Police Chiefs and Sheriffs Association has recognized Sergeant Dan Justice's dedication to duty for the events that occurred on that fateful day, awarding him with a Gold Award for Valor at ceremonies that were held on November 16, 2018. And whereas the city commends Sergeant Dan Justice for his courage and actions in the incident of January 11, 2018, now therefore be it proclaimed that the city expresses its deepest gratitude to Sergeant Dan Justice for his dedicated and exemplary service to the citizens of the city of North Kansas City, and be it further proclaimed with great enthusiasm and sincere support that this proclamation be part of the official records of the city, and a copy thereof, signed by the mayor, be presented to Sergeant Dan Justice as an expression of appreciation and gratitude and as a means of honoring him. Done in my office this 20th day of November, 2018.
I really like both of them guys. They're both big dudes. Okay, consent agenda.
I move the consent agenda be accepted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 9.
Application for conditional use permit, Kevin's Car Wash, 1900 to 1924 Burlington. Bill number 7347, ordinance number 9144.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kevin's Car Wash is an existing business located on Burlington, and they are working on expanding their operations. The property owner has an option to purchase the 2 lots immediately south of their existing business at 1900 and 1924 Burlington. These parcels are in our C3 Service Business Zoning District and in the central area of the Burlington Corridor Overlay District. Automobile repair and washing is a permitted use in the C3 district, but a conditional use in the Overlay District, hence the application before you tonight. The Planning Commission held the required public hearing on this conditional use permit on November 1st. No one spoke at our public hearing, and they unanimously recommended approval of the conditional use permit to you, subject to 9 conditions that are presented in the ordinance in Section 3. To give you a brief overview, one is that the sidewalk shall be extended running the full length of the property, because we do have some sidewalk gaps in that area. 2 is that exterior lighting will be shielded so there's no glare created on the public right-of-way. 3 is that existing lots shall be consolidated into 1 lot, or easements shall be recorded prior to issuing a building permit. 4 concerns signage, that signage shall not extend into the public right-of-way. 5, where there are existing unused driveways, construction of the new vacuum area will include interior curb constructed across the drive, and that the applicant and property owner will agree to removal of unused driveways during future improvements by the city along Burlington. And 6, 8, and 9 are our typical conditional use permit conditions, that they're going to comply with all amendments and revisions requested during the permitting process. It applies only to the use described therein, is contingent upon no detrimental impacts to the public health, safety, and welfare. And number 7 is about if there's any work done in the right-of-way, that they will obtain any necessary permits or approvals from MoDOT because Burlington is Route 9. The applicant is here if you have any questions of them, and I would also be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Rick?
I was looking at the drawing and I couldn't tell, and I remember in writing it said that part of this would take care of the problem of people backing up on Burlington. Are they
Right.
going to change the way in, or?
No, the way in isn't going to change. The idea, and I'll let you maybe make your way up to the podium. Part of the idea of this is to get people moving through the site a little quicker, and so that they don't stack quite as much.
Yeah, so we're adding a second tunnel, so we're able to take the cars off the street.
Yeah.
And then this south property would give us an additional egress to get the cars back onto Burlington. And if we can
Okay.
keep that flow.
You're gonna have 2 car washes then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that garage gonna stay the oil change place?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. It's a fun place for kids. It scared my grandson when we took him in, but I told him it was a monster trying to eat the truck, but. Yeah, I did. But okay, I'm glad to see a second tunnel. I'd like the car wash.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
So nothing, oh, go ahead.
I think your staff's great. They're very friendly, very professional. Get you through quick, and they're out there in the cold and in the heat, and they're good people.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
So nothing changes on the north side structurally?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so, do you leave the building where it is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then you just install a second tunnel in that same building?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. So no second building or anything?
No.
It's just expanding the south side for
Yeah.
ease of use and getting around? Okay, great.
Yep.
I'm also a frequent attender of your,
Thank you.
customer of your car wash.
Thank you. That
My
means a
car
lot.
is anyway.
Thank
My
you.
daughter likes the rainbow wash.
Okay.
That is.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else?
First reading.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit to permit motor vehicle washing as a conditional use at 1900 to 1924 Burlington, subject to the conditions incorporated herein.
I move that bill number 7347 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9144.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes?
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Ma'am.
An ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit to permit motor vehicle washing as a conditional use at 1900 to 1924 Burlington, subject to the conditions incorporated herein.
Go for it. Number 10.
Proposed Gorman Pool Discount Program.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. The mayor requested that staff explore a partnership with the City of Kansas City, Missouri that would allow North Kansas City residents to purchase season tickets to the new Anita Gorman Pool, which is located just off of Vivian Road at the site of the former Vivian Road YMCA, since we do not have an outdoor pool that's available to our residents within the city limits. So we did talk to the Kansas City Parks and Recreation staff, and they would work with us, if the council directs, on a program whereby we could purchase tickets on consignment and then sell them to residents at a discount. And what we're proposing, the residents could purchase season tickets at City Hall's front counter beginning April 1st. And they would be, let's say, we would not pay for any tickets that were not sold. We've proposed a discount of a third. That's a somewhat arbitrary figure. If you were interested in using some other figure, we could do that. But upon your direction, if you direct us, we will work with the Kansas City, Missouri Parks and Recreation staff to work out the administrative details and put this program into place.
As far as the subsidy on the city, where would that money be coming out of? The general fund, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I personally think this is a good idea, a great idea, actually. Real intelligent guy, it looks like brought you the idea, but, you know, the city before I got here had an outdoor pool, and that's one thing that I've heard is that from residents is that, you know, we don't have an outdoor pool anymore. And so I think this is a good olive branch to extend to kind of help people out that want to use an outdoor pool and give them a break, so.
Brad?
Let me ask you, it says here, the Kansas City Parks and Recreation Board offers 3 seasonal pool pass options. Now, are those options at the same price point for Kansas City, Missouri residents as they are for non-Kansas City, Missouri residents?
Yes.
The same price point?
Yes, sir.
So, I think this is a pretty good idea.
Just a couple questions. Do they show proof of residency, I guess, when they come to buy the?
That's a good, I think we have not worked out the administrative details, but I think that we would want to make sure that anybody who claims to be a North Kansas City resident is. So we would probably require that by the usual means, a utility bill or a license.
Or they have a
something.
water bill, I guess,
Something,
from
right,
us.
yeah,
That would be a
exactly.
good way
Yeah,
to.
just something that's got an address on it.
So I would want that for sure. And then this is kind of, maybe it's a shot in the dark, but do you have any thoughts on, like, what volume of passes?
No, I did a quick
people might-
calculation. If we had 100 people take advantage at each of the 3 levels, 33 each, and it came out to something like $1,300. But it's impossible to say if we would
Yeah,
have
it
that
could be
level
1,000 or it could be
right.
100.
I doubt it would be that much. I'm guessing it would be a few $100s that it would cost the city, but it'd be hard to say until after the first season.
Okay. And then I'm okay with the subsidy. I would want people to know that the city is subsidizing. So if for some reason one day a council decides not to do the subsidy, I don't want them to think that the Gorman Pool all of a sudden, increased their rates or something. So I'd want to make sure people knew that it was a benefit, to the city.
Sure, and again, upon your direction, we can put something in the next newsletter, and we'll let people know that, and also, we'd like our residents to know that the
Yeah.
city is doing something.
Looking out for them. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah, and I'd echo all that. I think it's a great idea to partner with Kansas City, and I think it offers another great benefit to our residents.
We have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 11.
Immobilization of vehicles for unpaid parking tickets.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the police chief, Steve Beamer.
Thank you. There was a recent work session where the city's parking management plan was discussed by the council, and during those discussions, there were some thoughts about implementing an immobilization program for parking violators who fail to pay their tickets. And the council seemed to have interest in that issue at the time, and so we've done some research on how this could potentially be implemented here. Major Bagley and myself traveled to Columbia, Missouri, which has a program of vehicle immobilization there. If this is something that the council wants to do, there would need to be some enabling legislation passed that allows the city to immobilize and impound vehicles for unpaid parking tickets. In addition to that, we need to identify how many unpaid parking tickets a person would be allowed before an immobilization or impound would be authorized. Columbia's threshold is 4. City staff would be okay if that threshold was 3 unpaid tickets. But that is obviously something that is within the council's discretion to pick any number you choose before we would be able to seize a vehicle, for lack of a better term, either by towing it or by placing an immobilization device on it. Along these same lines, as part of that same discussion, there was comments about increasing the fines for parking violations here in North Kansas City. If If you recall, we have one of the lowest, if not the lowest, fine for parking violations of the metropolitan area. Recent discussions with Judge Fuller have led to an increase in fines that is going up to $50 per violation, which is more mid-range in what violations can cost. So if we can't get people to pay a $15 fine, I'm not sure how much they're going to warm up to paying a $50 fine. So I think that we need to probably have some type of option available to address this issue as we move forward. And finally, the last piece of the management plan that is going to somewhat factor in with this is the standardization of parking times in the downtown area. If you recall, we've got some 30-minute zones, we've got some 2-hour zones, we've got some 3-hour zones, and part of that presentation about the management plan was going to be standardizing those zones throughout downtown to 2 hours, which will help us with enforcement, and it will also just make it easier for the motoring public to know how much time they've got before they need to move their vehicle. So at this time, 2 questions for the council. Number 1, do you want to do an immobilization program? And number 2, how many unpaid tickets before we can act on that vehicle?
I have 2 questions. Do we have any idea the number of individuals who have a massive amount of parking tickets?
I do not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going
I
to say.
would like
too.
to know that. And then the second thing that my question would be the cost of either a boot or a device, or the cost to tow the vehicles, in regard to this. So I don't know what the device costs, and I don't know what they would charge us to tow them. And I think if we knew how many and that cost, we'd have a better idea of figuring out if this is a good idea or not.
To the issue of how much a boot would cost, I've done some research on those, and depending on the device, depending on the quality of the device, I'm going to tell you that $500 to $800 is the range that we would be looking at for a quality device, not having to decide exactly on which one, but that's kind of the range. As far as towing a vehicle goes, when a vehicle is towed, it is going to be, the cost of the tow will be, depending on how many days it's in storage, that's a variable there, but about $200 is going to be, and the city doesn't pay that cost.
Right.
When the person comes to claim their vehicle, they will be paying the tow bill.
Still think we need to find out how many people actually qualify for having their car immobilized in this city.
When we were preparing the parking management plan, we did ask that question. And my understanding is that you kind of have to ask that question of the parking or the ticketing system in a couple of different ways. And so there were at least, in 2017, there were at least 361 unpaid tickets. But that's probably the low end, because before Natalie left us, she looked into that again and came up with a much higher number. So it's kind of difficult to be real exact, but there were at least 361 unpaid tickets in 2017 and 754 paid tickets.
Okay, but I mean, if we pick a number of like 3 to 4 and then you're immobilized, that's not a breakdown of individuals and
Right.
number per individual. Which I think would be a better number to have in hand.
Yeah, I agree. I would need some data in order to feel comfortable making a decision on this issue in terms of how many tickets are outstanding, but also how many per person, and where is the line sort of drawn where this is an extreme action as opposed to sort of the norm. So, but there's 3 issues you brought up. One was this issue, which is the booting or the barnacle, whatever you call them. And the second was what was the second one? You had 2, 3.
How many?
One was the amount of money per ticket.
Right.
And then the third one was,
Standardization of the downtown parking times.
okay, so 2 hours or free parking or those sorts of things. Okay. So I think all 3 of those really need to be looked at.
We
probably
actually
separately.
weren't asking for direction on the amount of the tickets. That's actually a judge's decision.
Okay.
So that's a conversation that has occurred with the prosecutor and the judge recently. I think Chief was just giving you that for information.
Oh,
So
okay,
The
okay.
2 decisions we were asking for were, A, would you like to proceed with the program?
And if so, then B, how many tickets would you like to establish as a threshold?
Okay.
Tom?
I think the program is great because I know there's a lot of repeat offenders that have used this system for their benefit because they like to park right in front of a business and they know, what is it now, $15? And they don't care. I mean, they don't care. I mean, there's probably some that have hundreds, if not thousands of dollars worth of tickets against them. I think it should be 2 or 3 tickets because one ticket's too many, in my opinion, that's not paid. I think you should boot them and tow them away.
And to the question of how many violators are out there, if the council chooses to, when we do not have to necessarily go retroactive on this. When the ordinance is passed and the enabling legislation occurs, we can start, for lack of a better term, a fresh line at that point so that moving forward, the violations of the past, I'm not going to say are forgiven, but before we would impound a vehicle or immobilize a vehicle, we would work from this date forward, the date of the enabling legislation forward, as the trigger point before we would take action on a vehicle. So we wouldn't necessarily have to go retroactive and look at tickets that might be 2 or 3 years old.
Zach?
So you're saying we don't have to go retroactive. If you've got a repeat offender that's got $1,000 worth of parking tickets, would you go retroactive if you wanted to? And the other question is that if we have, a number of offenders, would we need more than one boot, or would one boot suffice?
Well, we can always get more if we need to. I think we'd probably start with 1, possibly 2. And if the need arises to get more, we can get them. I don't want to buy a bunch of equipment that we're not going to need until we have some experience with this.
Sure.
And I defer to Mr. Barzee on the retroactive piece of this, because we may be doing an ex post facto situation if we try to go back on these.
We'll make sure we have that answer before we would allow that to take place. I think, proceeding the way you're suggesting is probably the appropriate way, but I think it wouldn't hurt for us to come up with a list. There's more than one way to be able to address this rather than necessarily starting off by putting a boot on someone. And if we find out that there is a significant repeat offender that has never paid, or has just paid a little fraction of what's owed, I think we ought to approach that as well. And there's ways to do that other than, immobilizing his car to begin with. I think it's best to treat everyone the same to begin with. You're starting the policy now. I would hope there'd be some kind of notice that we would put on the ticket that this is what happens. And then they've been given notice. They've been told they shouldn't be surprised when they come out and they find that since they haven't paid their 3 prior tickets that they've received, that their car is now immobilized in some way. But I think it's always important to give people notice of what you're going to do before you do it. And that would be my suggestion. But I don't think it's a bad idea to look in to see if there is somebody out there that owes the city a lot of money. There's other ways to collect money other than putting a boot on their
Just kind of about the program, John, you only immobilize for a short period though, right? Like 2-4 hours? I mean,
No more than
it doesn't
20.
make much sense to boot the car for a day and leave it in the spot if we're trying to.
Columbia's policy is you'll immobilize it. If it's still there in 24 hours, if no one has come to claim the vehicle and get the boot removed, then you go ahead and tow the vehicle, impound it. Then they'll have the cost of towing to factor into, and they'll have to pay the tickets to get the release, to get their vehicle back.
Are we considering a boot release fee as well? I mean, it takes time and resources to.
We have not factored that into our equation.
And you're talking about the 2 hour standardizing the hours downtown. That's like an 8 to 5 or 8 to 6 thing.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I got.
And then if we do,
Fred?
Yeah. Well, I agree with the chief on that issue of well, I have a question before I go into that. The boot is going to be probably in the neighborhood of $800 or less. And I agree with the chief that, heck, you only need one, and we'll see how that works. And if more are needed, you can get more. But I do have a question on the barnacle. What is the price point area on the barnacles?
The barnacle price point to obtain the device and the associated software is about $700. However, Barnacle has a use fee that they charge every time you apply it of $30, with a minimum of 4 applications a month. So you have an ongoing reoccurring fee with the Barnacle that you would not have with the boot. So in conversations with Mr. Berlin, we start with the boot. Let's see how this program goes. If the applications are sufficient to support the cost of the Barnacle, then you potentially could wrap that fee into a release cost if we needed to at that point to recover those charges. But once again, we're recovering fines that we have not been able to recover to this point, which helps offset the cost of the program.
And, you know, it surprises me. I do like the idea they ought to have a warning first of some type. What surprises me is Columbia's threshold is, what, 4?
Yes,
and
sir.
we're kind of looking at 3. I thought North Kansas City, if Columbia was 4, North Kansas City would be looking at 5. That'd be more typical than what I've seen of things in the past. But, you know, that's
Oh, you know, in my opinion, we know we have a problem. You know, so yeah, let's get started on it. I mean,
How do we know we have a problem?
That's
How do I know, other than speculation?
she just told you.
She mentioned the 300 and some odd people that
316
Have-
last
So
year.
when
I mean,
we,
how do I know that they don't have just individual tickets? I won't be able to make a decision on this issue without some data. I'm not gonna do it based on speculation of maybe some data. So I'm just being honest, that if we wanna proceed it, from my perspective, I need to understand what the issue is and how many repeat offenders we have, other than just, you know, rumors.
I think it's against the law to avoid a parking ticket. Boy, a parking ticket. I don't care if you've got one or you've got 10,000 of them. It should be against the law to do that. I think 3's plenty. Anybody can forget the first parking ticket. You know, you get busy, life goes on, you forget it. You don't forget the second and the third parking ticket. And I think those people are not hardened criminals, but they're scofflaws. They've been getting away with things. If there's one, that's one too many. That's just my opinion. Kansas City had thousands of them. My company used to collect for them. They had so many, they'd turn them over to a collection agency. And we used to collect hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars for them. So, I mean, that Kansas City's a big city, and we're not. We may only have 10, but that's 10 too many, in my view.
To the Chief, Mr. Mayor, if I may, to the point of notifying people that a vehicle can be immobilized, we have the ability to edit the information that is provided when a parking ticket is written. We have electronic ticket writers now, so we can incorporate language into the ticket when it's printed off and placed on the vehicle that failure to pay could result in this vehicle being immobilized or impounded. And we can put right in there the threshold that the council chooses to for notifying people that this is something that could happen. We can work with the municipal court to have them query their systems. I do not know enough about the court software to tell you that we can do it quickly or what's going to be required to obtain that information, because to know how many people have parking tickets associated with a certain license plate, which is how the tickets are issued, they're going to have to go through and do some research to identify the different license plates and then how many tickets are associated with that license plate. It can be done, and we can bring that information back to you at a future meeting. But to try to address some of the questions, that's what I had to offer on that.
and I would offer that the goal is not for us necessarily to write a lot of tickets or even to recover a lot of parking ticket fines. it's really to get people to comply with the 2-hour time restriction to encourage turnover of parking spaces. And that was something that was identified by downtown business owners as an important consideration for them. We don't require people to pay to park, and so enforcement becomes a key component of getting people to turn over those spaces. And the goal is to support our downtown businesses by doing this.
You want to make a motion, or do you want to study it some more, or what do you want to do?
What would the motion entail?
Really?
Well, I guess that we would probably ask maybe two motions. One, vote on a motion to implement the program. And then if the motion on that is affirmative, then we would ask for a motion on how many tickets to use as the threshold.
Don't really have a program laid out.
No, so we didn't want to begin crafting ordinances and things until we had an indication from council that it is something, in general, that you wanted to proceed with. And then we would bring you an ordinance that would lay it all out in very specific detail at a later date. But before we went to that effort.
I'll make that motion, and Crystal can clean it up.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed?
Okay.
So then, at this point, we would then ask
Motion
the
for-
council, how many tickets would you like us to use as a threshold?
Three.
I'd like to make a comment on that. To me, and it was brought up by somebody, if they write me one ticket, and then you got a court date on those, right? And I fail to show, then I expect the car could be booted then. Other words, one. I don't understand why you would let somebody break the law 3 times before you enforce it, to me. So if you don't show up for court,
It's okay.
they boot you if they find you.
To clarify, you don't necessarily have a court date on a parking ticket, but you have, I think, 10 days to pay the ticket.
Well,
And after failing,
okay.
if after 10 days you fail to pay the ticket, now that ticket is, you are in violation.
No, then, okay, then after the 10 days, if I haven't paid it, I would expect my car to be booted. Why give me 3 strikes? You know? But, I don't know, that's the way I think.
It's kind of like a radar, you know, there might be a little tolerance level on that. You know, say it's a 35-mile-an-hour zone. You know, people might not get a ticket at 36. It might be a little more.
But they have received a ticket for this parking.
Absolutely.
You know, that's what I mean, the ticket's been issued. So if you don't pay it, you're breaking the law.
I mean, I can't argue.
Do we know how the other cities handle that particular scenario?
Well, there's not a lot of cities that we were able to find in this area that have this type of program. It's somewhat unique to the Midwest, or it's more common in larger cities, East Coast cities, that have tight quarters downtown and are challenged by parking issues. So Columbia really was the blueprint that we worked off of. And I understand Councilman Stewart's concern about how many tickets you necessarily act on, but we also want to have a measure of reasonableness with a person can get a parking ticket and may forget that parking ticket, but you're not going to forget 2, 3, 4. We want this program to be effective in addressing the repeat offenders. That's our first goal here, is to stop the people that have been doing this for some period of time and start turning those parking places over in the downtown area so it helps the business community. It's a balancing act, and if the council chooses to make it 1, then we'll move forward with that. But we just thought, in terms of a balanced approach where we're targeting repeat offenders, not just the individual offender, 3, 4 was an appropriate place to start.
Another thing you might have to consider is there'll be a lot of people that are out of the area they come over here and do something, then they go back to Des Moines or, Chicago or someplace. So sometimes if you're gonna send them a letter, you might send them one letter, or you might just forget about it, because there will be an expense involved in that too.
Tom?
Steve, after the 10 days, and it hasn't been paid, is there a bench warrant issued?
No, sir. And that's one of the challenges that we've got with parking violations. Before a warrant can be issued for someone, we have to have solid identifiers on who we're issuing a warrant for. A license, a vehicle, we did not witness a vehicle being parked. We know that this license, or this vehicle, driven by someone, is illegally parked. And so you would not issue warrants for the individuals. The judge has indicated that he would issue what's known as an immobilization order. Seize the vehicle until the tickets associated to that vehicle are satisfied. They may be paid by the owner of the vehicle. They may be paid by somebody who routinely uses the vehicle. But you don't issue warrants on parking violations because you do not know the specific identifiers of the person that may be the owner. The owner has the ultimate responsibility for parking violations, but you don't have enough information to issue a warrant for them.
I can see for getting one, maybe. The second one, I think we should do it. I think we should limit it to two, pardon me. That's just mine. Okay.
Oh, no, that was just three fingers. Three.
What?
I'm good.
Three.
I'm doing mine.
Shall we go for 3?
Okay.
Okay. You want to make a motion on that?
I make a motion that we limit it to 2.
We get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's call a roll.
Bryant DeLong.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if you thought you had to tell me.
No, I was still thinking.
And the motion is 2, right? Yeah.
Yes, the motion is 2.
Yeah, I can.
Councilmember Pierce.
No.
Councilmember Pearman.
No.
Councilmember Sanders.
No.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan.
No.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes.
Roll.
Mayor. 4-4.
It's 4-4 tie.
Yes.
All right. So, we understood. So the number is 2. Again, we will bring an ordinance to you, and you will have another chance at formal consideration. We were just looking for direction tonight to begin crafting that ordinance. You've given that to us. You'll have an opportunity to reconsider if you like, but we will bring an ordinance forward. We will begin preparing an ordinance, bring it forward for your consideration at a later date.
And does the council want the information regarding the number of current parking violations to come along with that ordinance?
Yes.
Wouldn't hurt.
And I'm not saying, my votes are not in opposition to moving forward on any plan. It's just that I do not feel like I have enough information and I know all the options available to us to be able to vote yes at this point in time.
Yes, ma'am.
Down in Excelsior Springs, they've got a big chunk of concrete and a log chain that they. I know.
You had there.
Know for that for a while.
know that for a fact.
I will have questions in the future about damage to cars when we tow and things like that, so just so you know, the log chain sounds like that might be
An issue.
an issue.
Number 12.
An ordinance prohibiting trucks on parkways, Bill number 7344, ordinance number 9141.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. I'll call on the city councilor, Tom Barzee.
Mr. Mayor, members of the city council, tonight before you is a proposed ordinance that, if enacted, would prohibit truck traffic on, and truck being defined as a vehicle designed for the a truck designed for the transportation of property and whose rated capacity exceeds 3/4 of a ton from operating on any street designated as a parkway within the city of North Kansas City. This is not uncommon in cities on certain types of roadways that truck traffic not be allowed. Some cities, it's their boulevards, parkways, other designations. As recently as a little over a year ago, the city council decided to name the spine road that runs through the One North development as Diamond Parkway. It's our only parkway in the city at the present time. And the city has developed that along with the developer at a great cost to the city. And because of its location adjacent to an interstate with an exit off of the interstate and an entrance onto the interstate at 16th, as well as Armour, there's a concern that there may be undue truck traffic passing through. Plus, this roadway is somewhat of a unique roadway. The city has a lot invested in it. We have special dedicated and protected bike lanes, and truck traffic is just really not designed to be there. This ordinance, if passed, would allow, though, for exceptions, those trucks making actual deliveries, pickups or deliveries within to businesses that are serviced and have an address on Diamond Parkway. It would also, of course, accommodate emergency vehicles, service vehicles, and utility vehicles. Service vehicles being, for example, garbage trucks, etc. And so it's the recommendation of staff that, and this has been discussed also, I might add, with the police department, but it's our recommendation that this particular ordinance be passed to, in fact, prohibit certain types of truck traffic along any street designated as a parkway in the city.
Questions? Yes, sir.
Well, now, if this ordinance would not prohibit, say, pickup trucks, like I have a little Ranger pickup truck out there, and I wouldn't, that vehicle would not be prohibited, as even a F-350.
F-350 would.
If
That's a one-ton.
the definition of the, just so you know, the definition that we elected to use in the ordinance is the exact definition of a truck used on those that are required to use our truck routes within the city. That's where this came from. That's not a new definition of truck. It's the one that the police are enforcing today. And so, however they enforce that, I'm assuming the chief can speak to that, but I'm assuming however they enforce our truck route use, that's how they will enforce a truck being operated on a parkway.
To the point, anything with a 1-ton rating or greater is what's going to be considered a truck by definition. Now we've got a situation where we have a 1-ton truck that's owned by an individual who drives that for their everyday vehicle. Then you've also got 1-tons that are out there that are being driven as DOT vehicles that are operating as commercial vehicles. So I think if it's, our officers have the discretion to enforce the truck route based upon the type of vehicle it is. We're not worried about the 1-tons necessarily, but we've got tractor-trailer rigs that have discovered Diamond Parkway as a shortcut. Instead of driving up Lynn and down Armour, they're starting to use Diamond Parkway. That's what this is designed to address.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. I got the first. Who made the second? Sanderson? And was everyone in favor? An ordinance amending Chapter 10.36, truck routes of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri, by prohibiting trucks on any street or thoroughfare designated as a parkway within the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7344 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9141.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Call the roll.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce,
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman,
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance amending Chapter 10.36, truck routes of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri, by prohibiting trucks on any street or thoroughfare designated as a parkway within the city of North Kansas City, Missouri.
Number 13.
Lease extension and modification agreement for Salt Dome property. Bill number 7346, ordinance number 9143.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Public Works Director, Pat Hauber.
I'm sorry, I don't have the information on this.
Oh, sorry, Pat. I can handle this. It's a fairly simple item. We do have a lease on the property that holds our salt barn on Gentry between 12th and 13th, and it is expiring at the end of the year. And NT Realty has provided, or Northtown Devco has provided us the amounts that they are willing to extend another 5-year agreement for, and they're indicated in the memo that's in your packet. We do recommend approval of the lease renewal. We do need the salt barn property.
Discussion? Yeah, go ahead.
As far as it looks like we had on the last lease, we had a flat monthly rate for the 5 years. And
Yes.
this lease it's now going up about, it looks like $8 a month every year.
That's what they have offered us, yes, sir.
Okay.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance adopting and approving an extension and modification agreement to an existing lease for real property by and between the city of North Kansas City, Missouri as lessee and Northtown Devco as lessor for the lease of approximately .29 acres of land on Gentry Street between 12th and 13th Avenues in the city of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7346 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9143.
Second.
All in favor? Call the roll.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance adopting and approving an extension and modification agreement to an existing lease for real property by and between the city of North Kansas City, Missouri as leasee and Northtown Devco as lessor for the lease of approximately .29 acres of land on Gentry Street between 12th and 13th Avenues in the city of North Kansas City, Missouri.
14.
Engagement agreement with Brian Cave Leighton Pacener LLP.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. Call on the City Councilor, Mr. Barzee.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, as you know, we've used the Brian Cave, I'll shorten down their name, law firm for a number of years. In fact, it dates back to 2008. They do almost all, if not all, of our development work for the city. They also represent the TIF Commission of the city. And the most recent amendment to their hourly rate took place in 2010, 8 years ago. Mr. Sparks mentioned that to me a couple of years ago, and I kind of mentioned it to Eric at the time, but nothing's happened. And so, but now before you is a fee arrangement that would increase and we have a blended rate. Let me say that to you. A blended rate meaning they kind of take a partners that charge substantially more and use some of the associates, and they kind of blend the rate. So this is not Mr. Sparks, for example, who does almost all of our work. This is, as a partner, this is not his hourly rate by quite a bit, by several $100s, in fact. And what this would do is up their hourly rate from $335 an hour, which is what we've been paying for the last 8 years, up to $385 per hour for all lawyers that might work on city matters, and it would increase the legal assistance that we don't get much on our bills, candidly, but it would increase that for any work that they might do from $170 to $220 an hour. It would also provide something that we haven't done before. As you know, many times I won't say many times, on occasion, that's a better way to put it, we have a developer pay our attorney's fees on certain things, and that's not uncommon. And so this agreement would allow them, Brian Cave, to bill them at their normal or close to their normal hourly rates, which is what they are probably paying their own lawyers anyway, and they shouldn't be getting the benefit of the city, if you will, for doing that work. And then in an unusual situation, it also provides for a lump sum type of a fee arrangement. We've never done that with them. I don't have anything in mind, but it does allow for that if it's the most appropriate in a given situation. Be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 15.
Ground Emergency Transport Program Intergovernmental Transfer Agreement with Missouri Health Net, Resolution number 18-069.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. Calling the fire chief, Dave Hargis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. With your indulgence tonight, I'm going to address 15 and 16. Both are related issues. The state of Missouri has recently entered into a program. It's called the Ground Emergency Transport Program. You've already approved a couple of agreements with the state of Missouri to participate in this. This is just more paperwork they require to do this. This is an intergovernmental transfer agreement with the state because in number 16, you'll see there's administration fee agreement. We will be paying a fee to the state government for administering this. It'll be reimbursed to us. The state cannot incur any cost for this program. So whatever our costs that we're going to get reimbursed for, we have to pay up front. The state's 35% portion plus a 20% fee agreement that the federal government will reimburse us. And to continue to participate in this program and move forward, we have to have these agreements with them. And I've outlined some more of the program in the memo here. We're not really at the point where we can gauge how much money we're going to get back in this program, but it could be a considerable sum. And I think it's worth pursuing because at the end of the day, if we don't get anything back, it doesn't cost us anything. And you can see from the schedule that the payments we make to the state, we'll only be out that money for about a month and a half before we're reimbursed by the federal government. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Question on, you said a lot of the paperwork and filling out these forms and the submittals, who's going to do that as far as staff? Is that fire department staff?
This
or city
fire
staff?
department staff, we had looked at entering into an agreement this year with some consulting firms, but with this being the first year out there, they're all it's a pretty substantial amount that's going to limit what we're going to get back. So we're going to tackle it this year ourselves, do it conservatively, because at the end of 3 years, they will audit us, look at what we turned in, and if we didn't ask for enough, they'll pay us extra money, and if we got too much, we have to pay it back. But this first year, initially, we're gonna tackle the paperwork ourselves.
Okay. Dump a lot of it on Stone King. He needs some extra work. So.
I'll take care of that.
Yeah.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? 16.
Ground Emergency Transport Program Administration Fee Agreement with Missouri Health Net, Resolution number 18-068.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 17.
Approval of purchase replacement maintenance van.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. I'll call on Mr. Hoffer.
Thank you. I have information on this subject. The 2018-2019 gaming budget includes $40,000 for the purchase of a maintenance van to replace a 1997 van that is rusty, leaks oil, and needs a new power steering pump replaced. The van is used primarily by building maintenance personnel. The model that municipal services staff proposes to purchase is a 2019 GMC Savannah cargo van. 3 bids were submitted, and each included a government discount through General Motors Corporation's Government Assistance Program. The bid from Westfall GMC in the amount of $31,599 which includes a GMC government grant of, or discount of $8,000, was determined to be the lowest and best bid. Each of the bid includes the cost of equipping the truck with shelving, safety lights, and a bulkhead behind the front seat for protection. Staff recommends approval of the purchase of this cargo van from Westfall GMC in the amount of $31,599.
Tom?
Just one Keith's driving,
Yes.
that he's had forever. Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Uh, 18.
The next one.
Number 18, approval of purchase replacement pickup truck.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call Mr. Hopper.
Thank you, sir. Again, staff wanted to go with the GMC product, and the 2018-2019 gaming budget includes $68,000 for the purchase of a 3/4-ton four-wheel drive pickup truck to be used by municipal services for street striping, pulling the leaf vacuum machine, and many other uses. The new truck will replace a 2007 Ford diesel truck that has been unreliable in the past several years and costly to have repairs made, including transmission, fuel system, and problems with the front end. The model that staff recommends or proposes to purchase is a 2019 Sierra 3500, which will include a lift gate and safety lights on the front and rear of the truck. 3 bids were submitted by GMC dealerships, and the one bid included a government assistance discount through GMC. The bid submitted by Westfall GMC in the amount of $50,697, which includes a GMC discount of $9,400, was the lowest and best bid received. Staff recommends approval of this.
Can that one drive on Diamond Parkway?
Tom?
Pat, in your memo, you say for the purchase of a 3/4 ton, and yet a GMC Sierra 3500 is a 1 ton, so which one is it?
It's a 1-ton, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You said that only one of the bids offered the government assistance program. Why is that? Why didn't the other ones?
Well, going with GMC for equipment is different than Ford. You've got all these cooperative purchasing agencies that do for us, but we found it very difficult, but we did find the government assistance program. But unfortunately, many dealers, and we contacted many GM dealers, were reluctant to go forward with their own program. We contacted an agent who's in charge of that program for a 6-state area, and he's kind of alerted about it, and he's going to work on that. But until then, we had to go all the way for a St. Louis dealer to get any kind of a discount, and he just threw out $7,126 discount, but it's not through the government discount program. So there's only one that bid it through that program, and it ended up to be the low bid by a pretty good margin.
Got a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 19.
Operation Greenlight Agreement, calendar years 2019 and 2020, resolution number 18-070.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call Mr. Hopper.
Thank you. In 2009, the city entered into agreement with Mid-America Regional Council to participate in Operation Greenlight. North Kansas City's first experience with Operation Greenlight was in conjunction with the Christopher Bond Bridge project in 2009. It involved traffic signal improvements along the Armour Road corridor, including new software, hardware, video cameras, and they synchronized the traffic signals. The project was done at no cost to the city. Since 2010, the city has contributed annually to Operation Greenlight for the maintenance and operation of the system, which includes coordinating and synchronization and monitoring the traffic signals to obtain the best traffic flow possible in given situations. For example, if there's a wreck on I-35, Traffic was flowing heavily westbound on Armour. Operation Greenlight would change the sequencing to allow more flow westbound on Armour Road. That's happened many times. Operation Greenlight's goal is to reduce traffic congestion and mitigate air pollution. There are 25 cities in the metro area that are members. The 2017-2018 agreement will expire on January 1, and a new 2-year agreement for Operation Greenlight is submitted for consideration of approval. The cost to participate is $600 per year for each monitored intersection, which is $200 less per intersection than it was in the 2017-2018 contract. The city has 7 intersections along Armour Road that are monitored, so the cost for participation in the next 2 years is $4,200 each year. Staff recommends for approval.
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 20.
Employment Agreement, Patrick Halver, Bill number 7345, ordinance number 9142.
Eric.
Thanks, sir. Our Public Works Director, Pat Hauber, has an employment agreement with the city. He's one of only 3 employees who has an employment agreement. The other 2 are myself and the city councilor. It's kind of a remnant from a previous years. I do recommend that Mr. Hoffer, that his employment agreement be amended to provide him a raise in salary that's commensurate with the performance appraisal that he received in his position, in the pay quartile for his position according to our compensation system, and the budgeted increase in the fiscal year 2019 budget for all employees. So an ordinance has been prepared for your approval with an increase of that amount.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance approving and adopting the 6th Amendment Addenda to Employment Agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri, and Patrick A. Hauver, Public Works Director.
I move that bill number 7345 be placed on second and final reading and pass its ordinance number 9142.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance approving and adopting the 6th Amendment Addenda to Employment Agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri, and Patrick A. Hauver, Public Works Director.
21.
Call for the April 2019 municipal election, Bill number 7348, ordinance number 9145.
Eric.
Thanks, sir. I'll call on our city clerk, Crystal Doss.
So every year we have to call for the election, and this year's election will be held on April 2nd, 2019. This will just be to elect candidates for council member from the 4 wards.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance calling for a general election to be held on April 2nd, 2019, for the purpose of electing candidates for the office of council member from each of the 4 wards in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7348 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9145.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance calling for a general election to be held on April 2nd, 2019, for the purpose of electing candidates for the office of council member from each of the 4 wards in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
Number 22.
Approving accounts due and payable by the city through November 16th, 2018. Bill
First-
number 7349, ordinance number 9146.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through November 16th, 2018.
I move that bill number 7349 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9146.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes?
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through November 16th, 2018.
Mr. Eric.
Thanks, sir. I'd like to begin by calling on the Fire Chief, Dave Hargis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, tonight I wanted to apologize. We had our 5th annual recognition ceremony last Thursday, and I did not get the word out to the council. I should have mentioned it the week before at the council meeting, and we did not get the invites out to you, so I sincerely apologize for that. We have taken measures to make sure that does not happen again. So if you did miss a good evening, however, it is on the city's
Rub it in.
website, and you can watch it. So, again, I apologize.
Rookie mistake.
That's
You need a
right.
rerun.
And also, you had in your packet, we recently did our strategic plan. We had a facilitator come in, and we have received the final document. It's been given to you. It's the management team has it. It'll be posted shortly on after I wanted to present it to you first, and it'll be up on the website. And I wanted to let you know that the goals and objectives we set out in there was done by the committee that was doing this. However, we took a page from Sarah Copeland for doing, we blew up all the goals, we have them in our classroom, and we gave everybody dots to put on there. So our members are placing dots to prioritize our goals to work on for the next 5 years, what we're going to start on first, second, and so on. So again, if you have any questions about the strategic plan, don't hesitate to ask. So that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Dave. And just a few items. Just with regard to the item in which you called for the election, just would note that the first day for filing is Tuesday, December 11th, for anyone who might be interested. In your package is our upcoming city items of note report. Also in your packets, a year ago, when you did adopt an ordinance that allowed for the serving of alcohol at the Parks and Recreation Center, you did ask for a report on how it was going a year later. So there have not been too many events at the Parks and Recreation Center in which alcohol was served, but the Parks and Recreation Director, Kelly Vativka, did provide a report, which is in your package.
A question about that, actually, because the wording in the memo is we've had only one rental where alcohol was approved to be served. So does that go through the Parks Board to approve?
Yes.
And they, even though there were requests, they didn't approve the?
I think they only have one request.
Oh, okay.
It-
Okay, the way it was worded, it was almost like,
I-
lots of people have asked, but we only approved one.
I don't believe that's the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Also, would note that you did approve at your last council meeting a short-term conditional use permit for the closure of Howell Street, and we have received word from the school district's contractor, J.E. Dunn, that they expect to complete that closure tomorrow. So it will be closed for several months in between 25th and 23rd, and will be set up in the manner that was discussed with the council at that meeting. Also in your packets is a memo from the Community Development Director regarding the results of the work session on October 23rd, in which presented a lot of information to the council and asked for direction on a number of things, and the council did provide that. And we did want to memorialize that, make sure that it was there in writing for anyone to look up and see, and that report is there for your perusal. Did you have any additional comments on that, Sarah? No. If you have any questions, let us know, but we did reflect the direction that we understood you to provide.
Yeah, thank you for that. Very helpful.
Lastly, would like to just determine if the councils would like to proceed with something that we've looked at, and if so, we would bring it back to you for a formal approval later. And that is the placement of an electric vehicle charging station in Mackin Park. This was all generated by really just one resident who asked us to take a look at that, said that they would like to see it and that they felt that there'd be a demand for it. And we didn't have a whole lot of knowledge of the program, but we contacted KCP&L, and They have installed a number of these around the metro. They do have a few more that they would like to install, but they've kind of run out of takers, so they were quite eager to talk to us. They did come out, and we looked at 3 proposed locations, one on the southeast corner of Mackin Park, the Mackin Park parking lot, one on Howell Street, and one at Wagon Trail Dog Park. Our thought is that the best location would be in that corner of Mackin Park. It's kind of out of the way. There's plenty of parking there. There are fewer spaces on Howell Street, and the Parks Board is willing to do that. And that is the location. If it was to be in Wagon Trail Dog Park or in Mackin Park, the Parks Board would want it to be in Mackin Park, and I think that they should have that approval. So that's what's being recommended. And if you are amenable, we will work to put together a lease to bring to you at a future time.
Brad?
Or actually, it's a license agreement.
Yeah, is there a cost associated with that to the city?
No, sir.
And will that generate any revenue for the city?
No, sir.
It's
It would just be a service to,
service.
yes, sir.
But do we have 2 or 3 here in the city already, don't we?
We don't have any that I'm aware, but
Yeah,
there might be some.
We've got several.
Well,
Private
do we,
businesses?
well, see, I don't know where they are then,
Yeah.
but like, if we do, then they'd be on private property, yeah.
Tom?
Is there a cost associated to use this?
Yes. So one thing that KCP&L indicated is if the city wanted to, we could pay for the electrical cost. I indicated I didn't think that the council would want to do that, so people would use a credit card. And it would be like, filling up your tank with gas, except you'd be filling it up with electricity. Most people charge up their vehicles at home, but this would be, I guess there is some kind of a market for these stations around.
I'm surprised that you can't put a transportation tax on it.
We did not look at trying to get revenue out of it. It was just something that it wouldn't cost us anything. It would be a service that would be provided.
Would there just be one?
One station, but it would be
2?
It would take 3. It would serve up to 3 vehicles, and it would take
I
6
see.
spaces,
Okay.
which the park board is willing to give up at that location.
I think you want to encourage people to use it, not discourage them.
Yeah, right.
Yes, End of the day.
So, if it's okay, we'll go ahead and proceed to the city councilor has a license agreement in front of him. He's looking over, and we'll work to try to finalize that and bring it to you.
Yeah, look how hip
Right.
we are. We'll have our own electric charging station.
Yes.
It's pretty hip.
Brian?
That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Don't have a lot, just glad to see Officer Landon and Sergeant Justice get recognition for that. I mean, that event could have been totally different, and I'm glad it worked out. He's fine and back on duty, and just want to thank him for their service. That's it.
Pat, I want to thank your crew for keeping up with the Leafs. I know it's been an ongoing battle, no doubt, particularly since you're down. And I'm really pleased that we approved your raise because, as I see it, you saved us a bunch of money on the van and truck. So you deserve it for many reasons, but I think you've already paid yourself back for what you saved in our budget.
I wanted to reiterate the comments about the officers, so I appreciated that recognition and proclamation for both of them. And then I just wanted to mention that on December 8th, which I just think is a Saturday, is the annual Candy Cane Course. It's the new Christmas lights.
I think it's called. I didn't know it had changed names.
It changed to Candy.
I think
Part
when
of the reason I couldn't find information about it.
Oh, it used to be the Christmas light run. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, used to be a Christmas lights run. Now it's called the Candy Cane Course or something like that. But anyway, it's going to be December 8th.
Nothing in that.
Well, I want to wish everybody a happy and safe Thanksgiving. And if you're traveling, hope that you get there safe and come back safe. Just re-echo the comments about our officers. I'm glad that they got their proclamation well-deserved, and I'm glad that they are okay. Wanted to congratulate Crystal Doss on her election as president of the Missouri, the clerks, I'll probably get it wrong, Western Division City Clerks, something, yeah. There you go. So congratulations on that, Crystal. You do a great job. And let's see. again, just reiterate thanking the Business Council for running the farmers market for 10 years. So everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks.
All I have is, I'd like to honor Rick Landon and Dan Justice, and I think I did on Facebook with them, but it's a dangerous job, can be, and they handled that very well. I also like to say that I don't normally go to craft things, but we was driving by the parks. My wife said, "Oh, stop, they got a craft thing going on," and it was really nice. They had a lot of good stuff in there if you wanted to buy it. We did. And the Leaf guys are doing a good job. They're going to have a big job in some of the avenues because the high school kids came by doing their public service and raked a lot of the yards. Of course, nobody told them, I guess, not to rake them in the street, but they did. But I think the guys will probably by tomorrow. I hope. Tomorrow's Wednesday. That's their last chance this week, isn't it? Yeah. So that's all I have.
Well, I'd like to express another appreciation also to Rick Landon and Dan Justice on receiving their award. As I remember from years ago, on that award, it goes to the Metropolitan Police Chiefs and Sheriffs Association, and then that group makes a decision on where that award should fit into place. And the top award, well, is gold and silver, then bronze, and at the bottom would be certificate. And that's a good thing. I see more value to that from a standpoint of objectivity. And there used to be another award that was, I think, even above the gold award. But I remember back in the day going through that I wasn't impressed with that because the people that received that were basically retiring police chiefs around here. And back in those days, all they did was, shuffle papers, and they got the top award. Yeah. And I want to express appreciation also. I'm sorry I can't pronounce the last name. Adam DeGorna for his appointment to the Parks and Recreation Board. And getting back to the police department, I don't want to ramble here. Try to make this quick. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, at the last meeting, regular council meeting, we had the election. I found it to be quite interesting with the passage of Amendment 2 for marijuana, and I think there's going to be a lot of challenges for the police department. In the last week or two, according to what I saw on television, the Jackson County prosecutor has decided not to prosecute any cases. That doesn't mean there wouldn't be cases in municipal court on that, I wouldn't think. But that's in Jackson County and Kansas City. Missouri, the situation I can see is there's a number of people, they'll come across the bridge and they think they're still in Jackson County. Well, it's a different story in Clay County. And you're going to have situations where, do you carry a firearm and have possession of marijuana? And the person's going to say, well, that marijuana is not illegal and not an illegal drug. No, it isn't under state law, but under federal law, it's still a Schedule I illegal drug. How's that going to work out? And I say these things because lawsuits are bound to happen somewhere in this state, those kind of things. Another situation I've seen or heard about is you can, if you have a person has a permit, and this is going into effect, I think, on the 8th of December. If a person has a permit, they can grow a certain amount of marijuana in the basement or on the premises. Well, what if you go down there and they have 10 times as much marijuana as they're supposed to have in that area where they're growing it? And then they tell you, well, there's other persons who have permits that are renting that space. So then what are you going to do? So I find that to be just a lot of interesting things that are going to happen and potential lawsuits throughout the entire state. That includes us also. It's going to be challenging. I'll conclude by saying, wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving holiday.
Just everybody have a safe holiday. That's it.
Nobody mentioned the mayor's Christmas tree.
Oh, that was an
It was
amazing
a
event.
lot of fun, Mayor.
That
Great
was
time.
amazing.
Amazing event.
We had to do
Saving it for
something
the
you.
You
mayor.
did so well in your speech. We loved it. It was a beautiful event.
Okay, that's enough.
Okay.
Okay, well, at least we got acknowledged, so that's it. I'm done. Okay, number 26.
Consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610.0212.
So moved.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
27.
Consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610.0212.
So moved.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Keep going.
28.
Consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610.0212.
So moved.
Second.
29.
Councilmember
hey.
DeLong.
Yes.
We got a vote on that.
Councilmember Pierce.
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman.
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan.
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
29.
29.
Consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610.0212.
So moved. Second.
Whoa.
Yes.
Whoa. Wait a minute.
We're very excited about this one.
It's a race.
All right.
Councilmember DeLong.
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce.
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman.
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan.
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
One more.
Number 30.
Bill?
Move to approve.
Wait a minute, I have to read it. Consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610.0212.
Move to approve.
Second. Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we did it right away. Here, do you want this?
I do. I have, thank you.
I
was
kind
gonna
of moved
ask
it
for
over to you,
another
but
one.
I didn't make it all the way.
That's okay.